try playing both at the same time. It's very interesting.
So like,
Oh yeah, that's good. No. It causes you'll wake up cold sweats. It's lots of nightmares for people.
do you need my music?
No. Well, you know what? Yeah, why not? Let me just see how you. It's interesting to see how people write in their own music.
Yeah, I'm sorry in advance because it's very messy.
Okay.
Does anybody happen to have an extra iPhone cable that I could borrow?
I do in my car.
Yeah, it's not really. Okay, no worries.
Good God. You're not kidding. You do right.
I've been using this music since like March, and I did not get a new copy.
Wow. All right, cool. So, Bradley, come on up on stage. We'll sit here and we can get started.
Should I stand here?
Yeah, that's the general idea.
And before we start, how much do you want to play? Sorry, I got a filter in here.
You asked me that question, and I said around 5 minutes is typically what people say, but like, sure, do you want extra time to perform more of it?
Well, what I meant was, do you want to do you have a spot in particular that you want to get to?
I was planning on playing the first, like from the beginning to before the cadenza. So
First 2 pages, the big cadenza or the little one?
After the little one, and then plus the
Second theme. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Go ahead.
Can we stop here? Do you mind? Great. So, so look, there's so much of your playing that I absolutely adore. I mean, spirit, musicality, excitement, accuracy, intonation, generally very, very good. Why I wanted to stop a little bit ahead, so make sure there's a few points that I think are pretty important. And the main one is that I have no doubt that you're going to play this with orchestra very soon. And when you do, you're going to be in a lot of trouble if you don't adhere to some pretty strict. I know the first page can appear very free in rhythm, but it actually, don't let the tutu, don't let the duple meter pull you apart rhythmically too much. Believe it or not, in the orchestral accompaniment, there are certain moments where things tighten up a little bit, where they go from and then they go to 16th notes. So from that point, there's actually a structure that we can be sort of fooled into not thinking is actually there. But it's one that I know you probably, have you ever practiced this with a metronome?
I mean, I played it with piano before.
Okay, not quite the same thing. Because, we can tell pianists what to do, but trying to tell an orchestra, it's like trying to move an iceberg. It just doesn't work. Once you have a tempo, I mean, good luck. You can't budge it. So what I would suggest to you is there's no reason you can't do absolutely everything that you want, musically speaking, and still have a tempo that you can stick to one and not, because it really, so let's just play a little bit of the opening. Just start from the beginning. Okay, great. Now, did you feel like I put a straitjacket on you? Not really, right? You see, when it comes to conforming to rhythm, it's really just a matter of finding a way to inject our own interpretation into something that is really easy to follow. Because then conductor is with you, orchestra is with you, principals and the strings know exactly what you're going to do. And then it gets really easy. So go from there. And so this is the point where things, texturally speaking, start to move a little faster. It's just changing from eighths to sixths, or it might be duple triplets or 16ths, I forget which. But the orchestration builds a little bit. And so that when you get there, then things get a little stricter. So this is where my only complaint to you is that when you begin a phrase, the tempo that you start with, especially the opening, has to be consistent. And there, like I said, I've only heard you play for a few minutes, and I know that there's absolutely no reason that you can't do everything that you want and still obey a tempo that is consistent from one phrase to the next. So go from go from there. Do you intend to have all this happening with one note or the other? Do you intend to put accents and swells within the dotted quarter note?
I think so, yeah.
You do? Why?
I think it adds character.
Do you think so?
Maybe.
Try it once and think about a note just having a beginning and then a destination point without lots of peaks and valleys in the middle. Character is something that you'll find can be, if you offer, it's kind of like a play when you have a character that is, I don't know, has multiple personalities or schizophrenia or something. It's like you don't know who you're actually talking to. And if you have a phrase that does too many things in a short amount of time, then it's kind of like, sometimes the original message might get a little bit confusing. And so when I say err on the side of simplicity, it's because how long is this piece?
The movement is 18 minutes.
Whole piece is about what, 40? 35, 40 minutes?
32, I think.
you have a lot of time to give the entire audience and more all the excitement they could ever hope for. You don't have to do it all in one phrase or all in one series of notes. So think about I'm not asking you to be boring. I'm asking you to pace yourself because it's a long piece and you've got many, many dramatic moments to get to. So don't feel like you have to, if I'm thinking about how we do. So, why not? Let your C sharp do one thing, and then next thing you know, you're building long lines. Because when I hear lots of peaks and valleys within a phrase, I don't quite remember what the phrase was anymore. And if you listen to, I think about the people that when I was your age I listened to. It was very simple music making, and because of that, you got a sense of where they began, and you could kind of tell where they were going because there wasn't the kind of self-interruptions of a phrase distortion. And so I don't want to, by no means do I want to I don't want to extinguish your musical soul because I think it's very powerful. But at the same time, think about, and this goes to, sonata playing, solo Bach playing. Simplicity has a wonderful place because it allows your listener to really sit back and enjoy what you're offering in a sense that doesn't allow for too much to get in the way in terms of dramatic fluctuations in sound, quality, volume, vibrato, that kind of thing. Why don't you play some of we have 3 minutes, go to the second theme, where I stopped. What's happening when you're playing? Very, very sharp on your B flat, by the way. Watch that. There's a solo going on in the strings. Who's playing it?
Viola.
So back to the tempo thing. If you're stretching and pulling and doing whatever you want, you think they know where to put? Back to my original point is that have a little bit more structure in the rhythmic component of your playing. Because like I said before, it's beautiful, it's expressive, but it has to be within. I want you to be at your best when you do play with an orchestra, instead of wondering why in the world are they not with me? It would be a tragedy. It really would, because you wouldn't be able to play your best because you would suddenly be very confused. And so do this kind of rhythmic tidying, do it all at home. And when I say use a metronome every once in a while, just to give yourself a real ballpark and a parameter to know exactly where you need to fit in, so that you don't orchestras with you on the offbeats, right? It's very difficult. I mean, we both played it, you know, in the orchestra, and it's like, everybody, it's one of these very precise moments, even though it's slow and tender and expressive. It's got to be super locked in. Otherwise, it's a complete disaster. So this is what I want you to start looking forward to. As well as you play, this is the next step, is for you to think about, where does the solo part fit in? This is an incredibly orchestral piece, you know. I know you've got so much for us to do technically that it may feel like it's a big, you know, solo endeavor, but Sibelius was a great orchestrator. He weaves your part in really, really magnificently with the orchestra. So that component, your wherewithal, has to be, you know, at the top. And then you have the magic collaboration. Okay? Excellent playing, though. Really, really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Really, like, the better the solo, it's like easier to follow.
Exactly
right.
right.
It's like, you're like, oh, this is so obvious. Okay, what's the next?
Let's have Brandon.
Oh, got it. Yeah, you should. Yeah, go ahead.
We have 17, is that right?
Yes.
Awesome. with a mask on. Very, very well. And this is how you end it. You know,
Yeah.
why not?
I was trying to make it more of a peaceful ending.
No,
since it was.
no. This is an encore piece. No peaceful endings. I forbid. Okay, great. Tell me something. And now, this bowing. I hear down, up, up. So because you don't get the. Where is this? Why is my part? You have the galam again?
Yeah.
I've only heard. I hear down two. Because if you don't, the third slur just doesn't come out. It would be something to. Most of the time I hear this, and this is with like competitions and stuff, to get this, try it once, because I know you're playing it, but it doesn't come out because it's really lost because you're trying to articulate the fourth one. But if you have down, up, just try that once. Start from wherever you want. You hear how cleaner that is? Because it's almost like you're playing it, but you're not being rewarded with the sound and the clarity of the articulation. Now, because I question, and I, looking in my part, he has it the same way, but I'm just telling you, whenever I heard anyone play it, and when I play it myself, I always did down, up, just because it allowed for the articulation here to be really clean. So it's something to consider, because I know that you're playing the notes, but it's really hard to hear that third 16. And it'll make it just a little bit easier, because I feel like it's virtually unplayable in terms of how you want to hear that third 16th. You want to try it one more time? It just makes everything akin to this. And so the question is, why does he write this 2 and 2 and then everything else 3 and 1? Because there's just no way that it can have the same clarity. Try it once more. Do you guys hear the difference? Is it better? I think it's better, right? Start from the beginning. Really good. Really, really good finger octaves. I don't know about you guys. This is like night and day to me. I'll talk to your teacher about this. She's going to kill me, but that's okay. It happens every time I hear you. So very, very good. Tell me something. Do you want to play this opening a little faster? Do you have the desire? How long have you been playing the piece? Long time or not very long? Short time. Okay. My question is, if you desire to play it a little faster, how do you go about doing that? You know, the problem with Paganini, and even violists may encounter that problem someday. I saw a violist play the fourth caprice.
Why?
Yeah, you know. That one?
Why?
It was tense everywhere. He had Jethro Marx. He had huge hands. Anyway, Paganini is so hard to get the fingers, get the notes. But then the problem is how do we go faster? And what happens, and I don't want it to happen to you, is that we get kind of stuck in the tempo that we were practicing and getting the notes under our fingers in, and it's hard to make that leap to something quicker. And what I want you to think about is when you think about increasing speed, make it happen with a lighter left hand, and really kind of, you've got to strongly encourage yourself to do it, because you'll find that your slower tempo is kind of a comfort zone. And unfortunately, when Paganini is a little bit on the slower side, it sounds a little too academic. And we start hearing chromatics instead of, so when you try just a little bit faster and think about the relationship changing between the fleetness of your left hand, so be a little bit feathery light, but when you do that, don't disrupt and don't lose the core in your right hand. Stay in the string, even in piano. I feel like your pianos lose a little bit of core when the piano is simply a contrast to the forte. It doesn't mean that it's feathery or that it doesn't have soul or conviction in the sound. Does that make sense? Try just a little bit. It's very good. Could you give me like mega contrast? Could you, really? Whatever the notes are. Pardon my lack of skill to have the 17th Caprice ready at demonstration time. But keep it. Wait, that's one idea. Yeah. That's the other thing I was going to say. So one gesture, right, all the way through. So when you start strong, don't give it away by letting go, because then when you're almost giving away what you're going to do next. So when I think about really effective caprices, I think about one idea, one character, and then your next contrast has more effect. So play that start. Start here. Oh, wait, no. It's this one. Start and really carry it all the way to the E natural, so then when you back off, it's much more effective. Try again. More. Good. So, how does that sound? A little bit more directional, but yet almost simpler, right?
It sounds more soloistic.
So, and I'm not paying them to say that, trust me. But it's really, they're here, we're all here to sort of, we're here to tinker with things and experiment and see what really sounds good. If it sounded awful and I had a terrible idea, I hope you guys would say so. It may happen in about, I don't know, who's playing next? I'm just kidding. But really, it's about seeing what works. So I want you to think about, the simplicity of, this is music written in 1811, something like that. He wrote this, the story. He wrote as a challenge to every other violinist in Europe. See if you can play this. I do this I just wrote these last night. See if you guys can play it. Everybody was like, oh, we're good. So it's like, that being said,
So early romanticism, like simple ideas. So when you all the way through, and then this makes much more sense. And so when we have to stop now? Okay, great. So think about big ideas, carry, your larger statements going all the way through to the end. It's like night and day when you go, and the other thing is, just because something is printed doesn't mean that it sounds the best. This isn't one of those cases in Paganini where you should do the text because that's the best way to do it. This is something that people change fairly often. So it's not an interpretational thing. It's not chickening out or, I can't do it the way it's printed, so it just doesn't sound great printed, no matter who does it. And that's why you hear at competitions, you don't hear her text being played. Anyway, sounds great though. Really good work. Really good work. Sure. Okay, Delia.
So I played the cadenza for my concerto that I'm recording in like an hour and a half.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Do you have music?
I haven't. I'm gonna play the music today just because I don't feel the need to make life harder for myself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
Or I
what
can.
do too.
If you want, I can play it. I'm doing.
No. I forgot I have a tablet here.
Yeah. I can't remember. I have the PDF from my teacher, so I don't know which edition it is.
Why don't you just walk over there and take a picture?
Yeah.
Look at everybody thinking. They're so smart.
Just occurred to me.
I was playing a concert, well, not a concert. I was playing a concert, and lo and behold, I didn't turn off my iPad phone. And the concert was it was for a live audience. It was over the summer, and it was being recorded, video recorded and streamed live. And so I'm playing this piece, and then all of a sudden I get spam call, like red dot, green dot.
Oh.
And it takes over my music that I'm reading on my tablet. And I hit the red button, and I went from so calm to sweating profusely, just wondering if this person was gonna call me back.
That makes me really
And my
nervous.
ring is a quack too. It was on silent, and thankfully no one called back. Okay, let's hear some shots. gonna tell you what I heard. Inject it with a lot of air, a lot of breath, because it sounded it just sounded like you weren't quite ready to begin.
Okay.
So you've gotta, when we drop the needle and we play in a class like this, part of the experience is trying to get in the mode of like that we've already been playing for 12 minutes or however long the first minute. So feel like you've been on stage already and you're super warm and you're in the middle of the piece even though you're actually just starting, okay? You don't get to do that.
But I was.
No. Drop your hand, please. There you go. That's it. So what did you do differently? Tell me.
I think I used a faster bow and I like lifted the bow rather than just stopping it.
Okay, good. Guys, this is important because we spend hours and hours a day ripping ourselves apart, telling our inner self like how terrible it was and what we did wrong. Do we build ourselves up? Do we tell ourselves what we did actually right? Because the worst thing that you can do right now is not understand what you did differently so that you can't replicate that. We're too busy being negative most of the time, myself included. You've got to make it a two-sided coin. You can't just rip yourself for doing terrible things. You have to give yourself the tools with which to succeed. So when you do something great like that, you should be stopping with the equal type of, what do you call spidey senses? Like, okay, that was great. What did I do differently to make it so that I can do this 100 times in a row? So I want you to do it 5 times in a row. Not quite. First time is better. Good. Again. Okay, so it's been different 3 times. The second time was better than the first. This was not quite as good as the second. Think about how you are when you grip the string. There's a certain amount of vertical. You play the viola, so your sound production is different than mine, and I realize there's a little more weight and force going in. Think about how much weight is going down and how much weight is going out to the right. Okay? Getting there. That was better. Okay, so what I would like is instead of you starting from a dead stop, feel like the bow is moving like half a mile an hour before you really put the weight in. See what happens. Okay, I think that's better. Try it again. Okay, now don't throw the bow though. Hold on. Have the bow like a 1/16 of an inch above the string, so it's a simultaneous down and away rather, with your weight and with your speed. Okay, now give me more finish. Okay, now I think you can actually give me a little bit more weight. Let's try that. I'm not sure. Okay, so do you see how you can experiment with these? We always talk about the magic, the triangle of contact point, speed, and weight. You're getting somewhere good with this, but the point still stands is when you do something that's better. I know for myself that when I do something well, I'm like sweet, and then I go on. You're shooting yourself in the foot a lot of the time because you don't quite remember how you did the good thing. We're too geared towards our mistakes instead of towards our successes. So something to keep in mind. So in general, when I look at the page, Delia, I hate to harp on rhythm again, but it's a consistent thing. I know it's a cadenza, but when you have an upbeat that is longer than the downbeat, it doesn't make sense to me. Like those kind of similar thing. So let's just go from the beginning. We have till when?
2 minutes.
Well, I mean, so who else?
So, yeah, technically we have until 8:30, but if you guys are the only two,
Well, then she can play for a little while.
yeah. It looks like we're, so it looks like,
Ethan's my student anyway, so.
yeah.
Lana, do you need to say something?
You have to leave it. Okay, you wanna go?
When do you have to leave back? Oh, me too. Okay. Okay, go ahead from actually go from the last bar of the first line. Okay, so right off the bat, that's a half note. So with liberty, right? Remember the cadenza, if we're gonna play someone's cadenza, we gotta have a loose attachment to the framework. We can't turn a half note into a dotted eighth note. I don't know if we can stretch it that much.
Yeah.
Because I don't know the piece from Adam, but I know. Right, is that a motive that's in the first movement?
Yeah.
Okay, the cadenza is to remind your listener of the original material with a little, personal flavor to it. But you've gotta have the skeletal remains of well, that's a little dark.
Yeah.
You've gotta, you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
You've gotta show them what the original was. So stick to it just a little more carefully. So same thing. Two triplets there. Those are pretty broad. I think that if you distort those, then you have everything before it and after it that doesn't quite make any sense. So play that. What I think you should do, I know you have to record it.
Yeah.
That's not the last time you're going to see it. It's tonight. So
God, I hope not.
when you're working at home, I would put it on a slow tick, on a slow metronome count, and play it really, really, really metronomically as how it's written. And then, just like I said to the young man playing Sibelius, it's like there's still a way that you can fit everything you want and have it. Because this right here, if you play it absolutely as written, it's going to be very, very easy to pick out the subjects in the actual first movement. And so we need to stick to that and then expand.
Okay.
Right now, when we start writing a different piece and stretching apart certain things that they're almost unintelligible, then we get in a little bit of trouble. Because now we're kind of improvising and we're taking a cadenza and making it something that is a lot harder. You're challenging your listener to do something that they might not be in the mood, to do. So that would be I think that would be a good thing for you to do after tonight, of course. You have to forget about everything I said and you're going to go record this so that, obviously do your best, all that good stuff. But, all the triplets, remember, why do triplets exist? It's a counterpoint. It's because if everyone just gave us 8 notes and 16 notes, it would be really boring. So the triplet is a contrast. It does something different to our line. It broadens them, right? And so if we either compress them or make them bigger, then we're taking away from the power of the actual, the true rhythmic component, why the triplet is even there in the first place. You know what I mean? I think it's important to note that because always, whenever we Staunitz was what, Mozart's time, right? A little bit before maybe?
I think a little bit before. They were like around the same time.
But I mean, this is, music was quite simple. So, very quick happening.
It's a percussionist.
So when you have the triplet, it's really about providing a different musical sort of, a component, and it also allows our ears to have something that's a little more, exciting. So keep those intact. If they were 16 notes, it would be a little bit different. I don't know if I would be as adamant about that because they're all over the place. The triplets are there for a reason, usually to add some, expressivity, expression to it. You know what I mean? All of your fast stuff was really good. And in general, stick to the simplicity of starting. After a fermata, when you begin a new section, think about where the section's going just a little bit more and have a clearer dynamic picture of what you're doing. Sometimes being boring and simple and starting a little bit softer and just building and not letting your sound go down and up and down and up is a really easy way to build this type of era of phrasing. It doesn't have to be super complicated, even though I know it's a cadenza. Cadenzas are tricky because we sometimes don't know whether to be really strict with the rhythm or to be really, loosey-goosey with it. I kind of feel like this was at one point, who wrote the cadenza,
I don't remember.
Well, whoever wrote it, this was something that they experimented with in their practice room, and then they wrote it down. So it's already an improvisation. So if we improvise on an already improvised sort of piece of music, then you see where we're kind of pulling it apart in too many different directions. It's just an observation or a question to think about. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Well, good luck.
Thank you. I'm gonna pack up for I'll come back.
I remember you. You played quartet.
Yes.
Which one did you play again? Mendelssohn. You played Mendelssohn quartet?
I played Mendelssohn last year.
Yeah, I coached you last year. So Mendelssohn, which one? 44?
The
A minor.
A minor. Yes.
Ah, A minor. Or A major. Who knows?
I don't know, one of those.
It could be both. People write like doctoral thesis on this kind of garbage. It's true. You know it's true. Music theory people, like, it's different. Not garbage. Okay, I didn't mean like literal. But that's a question no one will ever answer. A minor, A major. You see it even published differently.
Really?
Oh yeah, some editions say A major, some say A minor.
Oh, well, the one I used, I think, was A minor.
Then it's A minor. There you have it. What are we playing today?
Bach Sonata No. 1, Adagio.
Okay, great.
No, sorry, no, sorry.
How many beats is the last note?
A lot of beats.
How many?
A lot.
How
More.
many? 4. How many you're holding?
Huh?
You know how many beats you're holding?
2.
At most. Yeah. It feels like it's an 8. So there's a lot of good things here. Really, really good playing. What I want you to think about are a couple things that are sort of consistencies that I think that you can address really easily. The first is you lift your bow sometimes at the frog. Are you aware of doing that? Why do you do it?
Because I tend to crunch, really. Especially in a string crossing.
Sure. What I want to suggest is now, you will never crunch. I promise you. It's like it should be a patented, like I should sell it. You'll never crunch if the bow speed that you end the up bow with and that you begin the down bow with are the same. Now, does it make sense?
Mm-hmm.
It's basically like saying, you will never crunch. Now, when it comes to chords, what happens is that we usually have to go over to the left and grab the lower notes. And for some reason, there's this little micro panic that happens in our hands when we go over. So I want you to think about controlling this. Control that with your pinky so that you go over a little more gently. And then what you realize you can do you can roll. The pinky is what slows your bow down when your wrist pronates to go over to the left. So let's go, something like this, where you're changing fingers
and you're also going down to the G string. Just try that, up bow, down bow. Good, now just be really brave. But now that's a combination of two things. First, your speed, but you don't give up on your right hand. Don't allow your weight to lift out of the string. Stay true, stay all the way in there until you change the bow. Again. Okay, it's already much better. Do you see how we're eliminating a crunch factor here?
Mm-hmm.
It's all, tell me what a crunch is. People think that crunch is like, it's not in the dictionary. When you look up crunch, it doesn't say, well, it's that noise violinists make when they're playing Bach G minor, first movement. Doesn't exist. The crunch is a result of a drastic change of bow speed.
Mm-hmm.
When your up bow and down bow are miles apart in terms of bow speed, we hear this sound that's not, it doesn't have anything to do with pitch, it's noise. It's basically it's the difference between the two bows. So if you eliminate that, you eliminate the crunch. It's actually quite simple, even though it's really hard to do. So let's go with another one. You know what, let's just do this again and go and just play a little bit. And if we get to one, this is all you really need to do. And what you realize is that you're controlling so much more, musically speaking, through a technical means. Because now your up bows and down bows are looping together. It's like your bow never ends. So the smoothness of bow change is what allows our line to go forward, forward, forward. Because really, there are very few true cadences in this whole movement. The first big one is right here.
Yeah.
You know, and then Fermata, but this is he's still in the same harmony. So really it's not, the phrase is extended here. Really, so it goes on and on and on. So you could really, there's only two sections to the piece. If you want to stretch it out and really look at things, harmonically speaking. So go from the same place. So last point. To make this, to really bring this home, the main part of the bow that you have to control is the 1/3 to the frog. So you have to resist this. You have to resist hiccuping or going faster coming towards the frog, because then you're forcing your down bow to be faster to match that, and then we have a kind of a big swell or an accent. Sorry for this thing. I'm probably distorting the heck out of this poor Zoom thing. Anyway, does that make sense? So have a look in the mirror when you practice. It's something that's really, it's a lot easier when your eyes and ears are working together.
Mm-hmm.
I bet you could fix this in like 24 hours. I'm serious. It's really like a lot of the things we do on the instrument, guys, it's just simple. It's awareness or a lack of awareness. And when we suddenly see ourselves doing something, it's like, oh, that's why my sound is doing that. So using all of our senses is a really good thing. Try again. Right here, this is a tough one. So it's really, what I would do is isolate every ya-da-da-da-da, right? This little 16th note figure. That's where if you think about, if you isolate all these little bow changes, what you'll realize is that you're starting to slow down with the frog. It's really about reversing our own tendencies to kind of get the bow change over with, if that makes sense. Because playing Bach, especially solo movements, is really about the opposite. It's about understanding that, yeah, we have the whole bow, but we don't need to use the entire thing every single time. I know that's what all of our teachers have said since the beginning to the end of days, is that you have to use the entire stick. However, sometimes the music doesn't really require that. And Bach requires a lot of close control of the frog, so things need to slow down just a little bit. And then next thing you know, you've got identical speed happening on both sides of the bow change, and then once you control, weight and speed together, then you've got the phrase that never ends, you see? Hate to stop you. I feel like you're like the old hunting days when the hunter like sends the beagle. What dog hunts? Beagles. And then you go. I feel like you're like hot on the scent of this thing. You're doing all the right stuff. Keep doing it, because like it's really about figuring out these little capsules to control. These. They're everywhere. It's kind of like the whole movement gives you all these chances to improve this and get better. You should be like really excited, because I feel like, once again, it won't take much. It's more about you just realizing where these moments are, and look in the mirror and just really, the thing about bow speed is like you'll see your arm you'll see what happens when you quicken up at the frog, and then you'll start to hear it. And you'll hear the difference between when you control it really well, how it just sounds like beautiful music all of a sudden instead of a violin player. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, how are we time-wise?
We should probably go on.
Okay, great.
Thank
great.
you.
Really good work.
Thank you.
Okay.
I was gonna like the last group.
Yes. Do you want to play a scale?
No.
Who wants to play a scale? I don't know your name.
I'm Mallory.
Mallory?
Yeah.
Nice to meet you. I'm Kyle. And who went to KU?
My mom.
Oh, really? My wife worked for the zoo. She has a thing against Kansas. I grew up in Kansas City, so like KU was like kind of the school.
Yeah.
Mount Close is an hour away, and Mizzou is 2 hours away. So I grew up around. When they won the basketball championship, we were like, yeah, go KU. Now, people like chase me out of the grocery store if I wear a Kansas. So you're brave. What are you playing today?
I'm playing the concerto in C minor by J.C. Bach.
All right. Wait a second. This is a viola.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
I know that now. Okay, let's hear it. Let me take a picture of your piece. See? I can learn. You didn't even have to remind me. Progress. It's called progress. And how much are you going to play about this much? Okay, great. Go ahead.
I like I'm nervous.
Okay, now, Mallory, I know you're wearing a mask. It sucks, to be frank. No one is walking through life right now saying, it's so easy to play with a mask on. I can't wait to do this for the rest of my life. So, take some extra breaths. Feel comfortable. Try to send some air throughout your whole body. And start when you feel nice and comfortable, okay? You know what? You have such a, your sound and your forte is absolutely magnificent. It's full of excitement and enthusiasm and all things so good. So tell me, what do you think piano means? The dynamic. What does that mean to you? Give me some descriptors. Give me some adjectives.
Quiet. I think it kind of depends. The piano depends on like the piece and like what the forte is.
Good. So contrast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I find that your pianos they're good for you because you're the one making them and they're happening under your face, literally, right? But for your listener, they're almost inaudible. And so what I want you to think about is, well, we're running out of teenagers here. Because I should be able to draw on a pool of 20, but like, I'll remove this you ever been in class and you had to like whisper the juiciest bit of gossip to your best friend sitting right next to you? And so you say it in the face, you say it like this, you're like, that's piano too. It's full of excitement, it's full of character, it's full of all things that your forte is without the sound. So that's what I want you to think about injecting into your pianos, is the same level of energy, the same level of excitement and character and either joy or whatever you want to infuse into it. But it doesn't have the same volume, but it doesn't lack everything. Okay, and so this is what I want you to experiment with just real quick. So let's go from the third line. And then start that second theme. So can you go from
Just right. Something like right here. Okay?
To the second line?
and then just continue through the piano, yeah. And so really try to have your piano give something back here. You know, we have to remember that we have an audience most of the time. You know, and it's easy when we're in our practice room by ourselves to kind of let things get a little bit too, how do you say it? A little micromanaged and introverted, sort of. But our pianos have to be expressive, and they have to still give the music some sort of meaning far away from us. So I want you to think about that. It's not about, I don't want you to minimize your contrast. I just want you to make it a different type of sound. Okay? Try it. Okay, it's okay to play more than that. Because within your piano, I want you to think about having contrast there. Because if you play with that level, I can barely hear from you, and I'm only about 10 feet from you. So it's got to be a little more substantial. Think about using more bow, and the amount of weight in your right hand should be enough. But just try right there. Have you considered down? Lots of those, so forgive me. Something like that. So then it gives a little, a wispy quality to it that has something more. Okay, try. So good. So now that you're using more bow, I think you can trade a little more speed and you can take a little bit of weight out. Because see, now your sound is completely different, but I still hear it. It has vibration. You got to remember the core principle of how we produce sound is that we're pulling one thing across a string. We're pulling a bow across a string. So no matter what dynamic we play at, getting our string to vibrate sideways is what makes our sound carry. And so when you operate on a sphere that's too small, then you're not getting any vibration sideways out of your string. And that's why your sound really wasn't going anywhere. But now your sound is going all over the place, and we can hear it echoing. And you didn't do hardly anything except add bow speed. So do you see my point about it's not about playing loud. It's about getting the most out of your instrument in the dynamic level that you want. And there's a way to do that. So think about that, because this is light years different than what you did earlier. And I don't think you tried any. I don't think it was like pulling teeth or anything. Was it hard? No. And it's one great misconception that piano means withdrawn and like only, it's not a secret. Piano technically means a spoken voice. That's the kind of the literal translation. It's sotto voce means a whisper. Sotto voce is what Mozart wrote in his most intimate, when he's, dying in the Requiem, writing the sotto voce and the flutes, It's like that the special piano but a regular piano is a conversational dynamic. So don't treat it like we don't even have any pianists in this whole, not that I can see in the first 2 pages. So what it will also do is that when you have a little airy quality that you just showed, it's beautiful. Then when you get big, then it makes it all the more unique. So now you've got this wonderful stage play with 2 that's very different characters on stage talking to one another. And that's really interesting. You see?
Mm-hmm.
This is the great thing about J.C. Bach, he's considered like classical, right? Like pre-Mozart.
Was the concerto that like wasn't really written by him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Casa de Sue.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, it's like Christ in Peace. Well, still, but I love to think about Mozart in this very, pre-romantic, post-Baroque, right in that era. I like to think of it along the lines of, a one-act play. And each theme, each section, you can envision a different character walking onto the set and delivering their lines, And they're wearing different clothes. One guy weighs 300 pounds, and the next is a child, And then the next is her mother, and then the grandpa comes in, do what I say, or I want to put you in the, It's like, if you start to think about characters like that, and it's easy to do with this era, with this time period, it's because they were all thinking, when they went home to read at night, they were reading Shakespeare, they were reading books, and plays, and all these things. When they went out to go see something at night, they didn't go see Dune, They weren't listening to NPR, and they weren't watching whatever. I'm into Ted Lasso right now. We got Apple TV I was watching the shorts that he did like 5 years ago. But that became the show. Jason Sudeikis said, I'm going over to England to coach the soccer. This happened like 5 years ago. It was these 4-minute things that he did like a few of them. Hilarious. Anyway, this was their entertainment. So when these composers, when they go to write music, the literature is blurring these lines. They view themselves as musical poets, musical playwrights. So when they wrote music, it was very similar in a lot of ways to what we think of now as plays and musical theater. So it's something to think about. I want to hear more of this piano. And in your short notes in piano everything can have a lot more going. So start right there for me, please. Or more.
Can I just do it like the full slur for the bowing reasons?
Sure.
Okay.
Good. Go on. time?
Yeah.
Question for you. Are you at all athletic? Do you do any sports?
No.
No. Okay. Do you prefer to run up a big hill, or would you prefer to walk down a big hill?
Walk down a big hill.
Why is that?
It's easier.
It is, isn't it? Know where I'm going with this?
Mhm.
Right.
Is it about shifting down?
No. It's about a little bit of your posture. And I know. Why do teachers say hold your instrument up? In simple terms of angles, physics, whatever you want to call it, when we are down here, we're climbing up the hill every time we need to move up the instrument. Now, it may not seem like that's that big of a deal, but we also have parts of our body that can be either helpful or not helpful. And that main part of the body is your rib cage. So what I want you to think about is that you holding your viola up a little bit frees a lot of room here. Now, when I have a little bit more room here, I'm able to do this so much easier. But if I'm pressed against, you see how my rib cage is now slumping a little bit. I can't really do that very easily. I now I'm working against myself, sort of, because now my own body is in the way. So when I suggest that you could elevate your posture a little bit, it has nothing to do with what it looks like. It's about what makes your instrument easiest to play. And see, when you have, and I understand you have a bigger and heavier instrument than I do, but you know what? You watch a violist named William Primrose play, and his viola was way up here the entire time. And it's no mistake, or it's no coincidence that the people with the most sparkling facility usually have incredible posture. Nathan Milstein was probably the one exception. You know who that is? So sad. Anyway, it's something that can improve your playing without you doing one other thing, or it doesn't involve a lot of work. It's a simple matter of thinking about now I'm shifting level. Now I'm shifting slightly downhill. Everything is easier going this way. We're up against it with the instrument itself because our bridge is the highest point. So even if we hold the violin or hold the instrument parallel to the floor, we're still shifting uphill. So we actually need a little bit like this to put our string height even with the floor. And then everything shifting downhill is so much easier. I want you to think about that because there's so many really, really good things about your playing. The one thing I see that's fairly consistent is that when you have when you have a large shift coming, I can see parts of you, like your elbow is already against your side, and you're forcing your elbow to the right when you're not going high enough, in my opinion, for you to need that yet. But you kind of don't have anywhere else to go because the instrument is kind of closing that angle in prematurely. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so if you got your instrument up, then you would have all this room here, and then shifting would be so much easier. And I think that would really be beneficial to you. Because, my gosh, what a sound you have. It's really, really, really something. Your fortes are absolutely splendid. And I think that if more go for your pianos, don't be afraid. Within the piano dynamic, there's a lot of expression there. It is not an apology dynamic. You know, it is not I'm going to go and hide somewhere. And then, because then when you come out in your portrait, it's like, whoa, where'd she come from? Where'd that sound? It's so amazing. Bring your pianos to the expressive, part of the conversation. They deserve to be there. Pianos, they shouldn't be, hidden. They're not, they're not something to be embarrassed about. It's still a really great way to be expressive. Okay?
Okay.